Okay, so apparently today we're looking at some of the weirdest animals evolution accidentally approved. Now, scientists have spent centuries studying these creatures, which is honestly impressive because I'm pretty sure about 90% of what they figured out is completely wrong. The other 10% was probably written by a penguin pretending to be a professor. So, let's get started before one of these things sends me an invoice. First up, the penguin, the bird that looked at flying and went, nah. Every other bird spent millions of years mastering the skies, and penguins somehow ended up as aquatic businessmen wearing permanent tuxedos. They look like they're late for a wedding, but the wedding is underwater. Now, according to extremely classified history, penguins were originally hired as waiters on pirate ships. The uniforms were already sorted out, but every time somebody ordered soup, they'd accidentally slide overboard. Whole business collapsed in under a week. People think penguins are black and white for camouflage. And no, they're actually formal wear inspectors. Every time somebody invents a new suit, a penguin appears somewhere in Antarctica, silently judging it. Scientists also claim penguins slide on their stomachs because it's faster than walking. That's only half the story. The truth is, walking was invented after sliding. Penguins simply refuse the update. They're still running version 1 of movement. And somehow, thousands of them all stand together on giant sheets of ice, looking like they're waiting for somebody to unlock the office building. Nobody knows who's in charge. They've probably had the same staff meeting going since the Ice Age. Anyway, enough about aquatic middle management. Now we've got the giraffe. The horse that somebody accidentally stretched during installation. Every time I look at one, it feels like the loading bar never finished. According to extremely reliable history, giraffes weren't built to eat leaves. They were actually the world's first construction cranes. Ancient civilizations would simply ask a giraffe to hold giant rocks while they built pyramids. That's why the pyramids are so tall. Once the giraffes retired, everybody suddenly had to invent scaffolding. People always say their long neck helps them reach food. No, that's obviously a built-in telescope. Every giraffe is secretly monitoring weather patterns, neighborhood gossip, and whether Dave down the road finally finished mowing his lawn. Then you've got the spots. Scientists say they're camouflage. Camouflage? It's a 12-foot-tall telephone pole with legs. Those aren't spots, they're QR codes. Nobody's managed to scan one yet because every time somebody gets close, the giraffe casually walks away pretending it forgot something. And somehow baby giraffes begin life by falling 6 feet onto the ground. That's not birth. That's an emergency parachute test, which somehow still isn't the weirdest animal on the list. We've got the crab. The animal that looked at every possible direction to walk and chose sideways. Nobody held a meeting. Nobody voted. One crab did it once, and every other crab immediately went, "Yeah, that's normal now." According to extremely classified pirate records, crabs were originally accountants. Every treasure chest had one sitting on top, clicking its claws together while calculating taxes. Pirates didn't bury treasure to hide it. They were trying to avoid crab accountants. Scientists claim crabs use their claws to catch food. No, they're Bluetooth devices. Every crab spends its evenings listening to motivational podcasts and seafood investment advice. Now here's the part nobody talks about. Beaches aren't actually beaches. Underneath every beach is a massive underground crab civilization with elevators, supermarkets, traffic lights, and one incredibly angry mayor who's been trying to ban seagulls for the last 800 years. That's why crabs disappear so quickly. They're not digging into the sand. They're just late for work, and somehow, every single one still looks permanently annoyed. Imagine living in a secret underground city and spending your entire life looking like somebody parked in your reserved space. All right, moving on. We've got the llama. Now, historians will tell you the llama originated in South America, but that's mostly because historians refuse to acknowledge what happened during the Great Alpaca Disagreement of 1842. Whole thing got covered up. Originally, llamas were actually invented to replace bicycles. Ancient mountain villages couldn't afford wheels yet, so everybody just picked up a llama and sort of walked aggressively. It wasn't practical, but fuel prices were incredible. Anyway, after the bicycle experiment completely failed, governments started using llamas as security guards because no criminal in history has ever wanted to explain to his friends that he got arrested by something with a bowl haircut. Now people think llamas spit because they're angry. That's propaganda. The spit was originally used to sign legal documents. Before pens were invented, every important treaty was finalized with one incredibly accurate gob of llama spit. That's why old contracts smell weird. Scientists eventually tried teaching llamas chess, but the llamas kept eating the bishops, which, admittedly, is against the rules. That's why chess clocks were invented, nothing to do with timing. Oh, they were just trying to distract the llamas. Then, during the Industrial Revolution, which, by the way, happened in 2007, llamas briefly replaced forklifts. Turns out carrying heavy furniture up a mountain is surprisingly easy when the furniture spits back. People always ask why llamas have such long necks. Easy. They were originally built to change streetlights before electricity was invented. Makes perfect sense if you don't think about it for more than 3 seconds. All right, moving on, we've got the parrot. Now, most people think parrots are just colorful birds that copy what people say, but that's only because history books completely ignore the great bird cover-up of, I want to say, 1963. Could have been the Renaissance, doesn't matter. The point is, parrots used to be in charge. Originally, parrots weren't pets at all. They were actually politicians. Every tropical island had a parliament made up entirely of parrots because nobody else could shout over each other for 6 straight hours without getting tired. Democracy was loud. Anyway, the reason parrots can copy human voices isn't because they're intelligent. It's because humans started copying parrots first. We were all just making bird noises until one parrot stood up and went, "Hang on, I can make their noises too." The rest is history. Then there was the great pirate mix-up. People think pirates owned parrots. Completely backwards. The parrots owned the pirates. Every captain had to ask permission before sailing anywhere. That's why pirate maps always had an X on them. It wasn't treasure, it was where the parrot wanted to stop for lunch. Now, scientists say parrots have incredible memories, which is honestly terrifying. Imagine insulting a parrot when you're 12 years old, then 30 years later it flies through your kitchen window just to repeat it back to you in front of your family. That's commitment. There was actually a period in history where parrots replaced school teachers. It seemed like a brilliant idea at first because they could repeat everything perfectly. The problem was, they didn't know what any of it meant. Entire generations grew up believing the alphabet ended with "Who's a pretty boy?" Then you've got the feathers. People think they're brightly colored to attract mates? No. Originally, parrots worked as traffic lights. Green meant go, red meant stop. Blue meant, honestly, nobody knows. Every town had a different blue parrot. Absolute chaos. Then came the great coconut economy. Parrots became bankers because they could count to, 4. But apparently that was enough back then. Every loan was approved with a loud screech and one suspicious-looking feather. Financial experts still don't know why it worked. Now, here's something historians refuse to talk about. The first telephones were parrots. Need to send a message? Just whisper it into a parrot's ear. It would immediately fly somewhere completely different, repeat it to the wrong person, and somehow the message would still arrive eventually. Honestly, not much has changed. And somehow, every single parrot acts like it already knows exactly what you're about to say. You'll walk into a room, it'll yell, "Hello," like, yeah, that's generally how conversations start. Congratulations. Then, if you accidentally laugh at something, it'll repeat it every single day for the next 40 years. That's not intelligence. That's psychological warfare. People always say parrots are some of the smartest birds in the world. I'm not convinced. Half of them spend their day hanging upside down, screaming at fruit and arguing with mirrors, which, now that I say it out loud, actually sounds exactly like politicians. So, in conclusion, the parrot is basically a colorful pirate manager, retired politician, former school teacher, failed telephone network, and professional gossip machine that somehow convinced humanity it was our idea to keep it around. Whether any of that actually happened, look, if you find an old history book with a parrot on the front, maybe don't trust it. So, I hope you learned something interesting today, or probably not, actually. Either way, thanks for watching. Ta-ta for now.